my name is Anna Baubock and I'm the editor of the Global Green Guide at the Legal 500. And today we'll be hearing from Kenny Robertson, who is the head of outsourcing, technology and IP, legal governance and regulatory affairs at NatWest Royal Bank of Scotland. And he'll be sharing with us some of his thoughts and views on the topic of sustainability, net zero and ESG from his in-house perspective. So without further ado, let me pass over to Kenny for a quick introduction before I start with my questions. Kenny, could you briefly tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Anna. Hi, everyone. So I've been at the bank 15 years. I now head up the team, as you mentioned, on the subject of that we're going to be talking around climate issues. It's been really interesting in the last year, 18 months, 2 years, how that's really come to pretty much the centre of what we're doing and in our consideration and how we're going to approach that as a team, as a department and as a bank. So I'm delighted to be talking to you about it.
Thank you so much. So yeah, basically my first question would be quite a general one. Sort of what do you see as your role as a general counsel at NatWest when it comes to achieving net zero targets?
So from a couple of things to it, I guess. For me, one of the first things is understanding what we mean by it and understanding what is this, what we're trying to achieve here. I think with this sort of climate agenda, and I'm a technology come IP lawyer, I've never been an environmental lawyer. There's a lot of acronyms, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of strongly held views on it. And having the sort of pressing the pause button to do the necessary upskilling. What do I need to know here so that I can contribute to the discussion? Second thing in terms of my role is role modeling, what we need to be doing. So one, learning and being interested in it, leaning into it as a subject matter outside the bank from those issues, and also understanding what are we doing as a bank, what do we want to achieve as a bank, as a purpose-led organisation, and as a legal team, which in the face of it, well, what's that got to do with us? Well, actually quite a lot, but how can we then contribute to it and drive that forward and take ownership of that and encourage the right types of behaviours?
Brilliant, thank you. So then more specifically, what are then some of these steps that you are taking to help steer your company closer to achieving net zero targets?
So we've done a few things, and if you'd asked me this 12 months ago, I would have struggled to have anything like the number of answers, and that's maybe indicative of what I said at the beginning about this becoming quite prevalent. So in the leaning into the subject matter and upskilling, we do weekly learning labs, is what we call them. It's short, bite-sized subjects. We ran, I think, 5 or 6 on climate type related issues, from TCFD disclosures, UN Sustainable Development Goals, what the bank is doing to manage climate transition, what the bank's critics would say about what financial services is up to, looking at COP26. And that was really useful as a sort of bedrock in terms of where are we going, how do we contribute to that. On a more granular level, we asked ourselves a series of questions. Well, what can we reasonably do? My team controls the bank's template supply contracts, where our risk profile is with suppliers. And as far as I'm aware, we are one of the first, if not the first bank to go out with green clauses, for want of a better phrase, in them, in terms of what are we doing by way of imposing obligations. They're reasonable obligations, I would say that, on suppliers around what we're looking for in relation to climate transition and how they're going to support our objectives around the green agenda, and particularly scope 3 emissions, which is obviously very relevant to us. Trying to bring the outside in again, speaking to colleagues in the commercial bank in NatWest around what customers are doing, what are they asking, what are their expectations, where is the market on this, so that we as lawyers can make sure that we're broadly reflecting what best practice is. I've also been involved in the RFP process for our panel. It reset last year now, just a year ago now. As part of that process, we moved from it being a gunfight on price and a race to who can give us a billable hour that will get you in, to a range of other issues. Thought leadership was in there, D&I, culture, for the first time since climate, and asking some pointed questions and assessing and scoring firms in terms of how how they come out on the climate piece. And the last thing I'd probably mention is we get 3 on a slightly later point, we get 3 volunteering days a year and as employees at the bank, and we've started using them for climate related purposes. So a few hardy souls in November, and what else would you be wanting to do in November but be outside in Fife planting trees? So some of the guys in the team were outside spent a morning in Fife planting 400 trees, which is good for the soul and it's a good activity, and you get a much better understanding of of those 400 trees, 200 will die within the first 12 months, and the regeneration is needed, and it's good fun as well. So we've done, and that's just the beginning. This isn't going away. This is kind of stage 1 in a long process, but it's been energizing for us. It's been good for us, and we're really sort of trying to lean in quite hard to it.
Yeah, I guess it's something a little bit more tangible when you're actually out there and actually doing something. Brilliant. In your experience, do you consider ESG policies to be more of an opportunity or a risk, and why?
Okay, this has maybe come across. I wouldn't be doing this stuff if I wasn't enthusiastic about it and I didn't see it as an opportunity. See it as an opportunity. We have a purpose as a bank, and part of that relates to supporting the ESG agenda. It gives us, and again, as lawyers, it's not always, if you're advising in projects, it's kind of tricky sometimes. Well, this is all interesting, but how do I actually get my hands dirty? It gives us a really tangible way to contribute. I think it's been energizing for the team. For younger lawyers, it's really virgin territory. In your career, there's not that many times come along that someone who is a year qualified or an NQ knows about, they can master this subject and really, really contribute on behalf of the team. So there's a real opportunity for them to upskill on it. And from engagement and recruitment, I think this is an important, relevant, good thing to be doing. And I think for recruitment purposes, being able to demonstrate that you are involved in this, you are contributing, you are interested in this, I think it's quite an important part that new joiners and candidates for positions are asking questions about this. And the more that we've got to say in this, the better, I think.
Yeah, I do hear this a lot, especially also sort of on the law firm side, actually on the private practice side, that this kind of recruitment element comes up a little bit. Ideally, you wouldn't just be doing it because of that, and that's certainly not what you were saying, but there definitely does seem to be that sort of push and demand from the kind of maybe slightly younger new generation that really are putting quite a lot of value on this these type of topics. Brilliant. So I've got one last question for you. What, in your opinion, are some of the key points to ensure that sustainability both helps your company reach those net zero targets, but also at the same time maybe contributes to your economic success?
I think the probably starting point is understanding it's not someone else's problem. Well, I'm just a lawyer, it's nothing to do with me. I'm not issuing green bonds. I'm not in charge of green mortgages. Well, there's lots you can do when you focus on it and have a think about it and upskill on it and use the brain power that you've got. I think that leads into vulnerability and honesty and transparency to some extent. Unless you are an environmental lawyer, a lot of this stuff is new, and how would you know what some of these, what scope 3 emissions are? I didn't know what they were this time 12 months ago. And understanding that's very relevant to my role in terms of how we would control indirect emissions. But you don't get there unless you're willing to kind of say, right, I need to start somewhere. I'm at ground zero. I need to start learning and leaning into others and asking lawyers for net zero or work the Chancery Lane project, bringing, as I said, the outside in. What resources are out there? The more progressive panel firms. What are you looking at? What are you doing? Who are you acting for? What are your other more progressive clients doing in this space that we can learn from? So understanding the opportunity cost, I think, as well, is important. If we don't do this reputationally, competition-wise, in terms of the market, are we in danger of being left behind? And linked to that as well as greenwashing. No one wants to be, the more you read about it, the more it's not difficult for journalists and activists to identify examples of greenwashing. They are plentiful, and I think it's really important that we talk about recruitment. There's no point in painting a picture of you're doing all this stuff if you're either your heart's not in it or it's not genuine. So we've been very, and we are as an organisation, I think, we're alive to risks around greenwashing and making it with a small p purposeful and impactful, and standing behind what we're trying to do in these spaces. I'm not saying we've nailed it, we're far from it. The wheel is turning at least. But for us, in order to try to hit these targets, it's been maybe touched on, there's been a number of sort of interesting, energised, and really genuinely in 2021, it was one getting to grips with some of these issues and making progress has been some of the sort of key high points for us as a team is making progress in this space.